So Global Technology University Engagements. Very nice
Great.
to meet you, everybody.
Yes. And Olia?
Hi, I'm Olia. I'm a UI UX designer and graphic designer of STEMconnector and Pod. Nice to meet you.
Awesome. Oh wait, now I'm just told I need to make sure I'm recording. How do I do this?
I hit the recording, so you're good.
You did. Thank you. Okay. Great. And Kristen?
Hello, everyone. I'm Kristen Hill from JPMorgan Chase, and I support Ruth and Carolyn on the Global Technology Talent and Workforce Strategy team.
Great. Where is everybody? I know Roy's in Dallas, Brent and Sarah are in Arkansas, Abby and I are in DC. Olia's in Utah, right, Olia? Where are the JPMorgan folks?
We are all based in Delaware. Kristen, I think, is actually in Delaware. Ruth is in Pennsylvania, and I'm in Maryland presently,
Okay.
but we all work together in the same office in Delaware.
And you work with Jen McDermott?
Yes.
Correct.
She's
Got
our
it.
fearless leader.
I know. I did a project with Jen, oh my gosh, I want to say 8 years ago. And it was sort of about the role of STEM in financial services. And at that point in time, JP Morgan and a couple other firms were sort of the only ones that were really keen on it. Now everybody's, because I guess IT is so, but it seems like all the financial services firms are keen on STEM talent. So that's a great program that you guys have at Delaware. So today's discussion is focused on translating skills, and obviously one of the most talked about areas is veterans, and so I definitely want to make sure we cover that piece in our discussion because this has been since I've been in this space, which is over a decade, this veterans piece continues, skills translation continues to be a topic that we are talking about a lot. And I think another piece is just right now is shifting careers, people coming from one career that maybe their career just doesn't exist anymore. But how do you turn those experiences into something that's going to help them, how do you translate those experiences into something that will, taking stock of those experiences and building on them in their next role, or in the formative experience that you are helping facilitate through a reskilling program. I guess, these are the populations that we're looking at. We're looking at veterans, underserved, underrepresented population, workforce returners, those, jobs that have disappeared because of, or gone away because of technology automation. I think we're going to see an acceleration of that due to the current pandemic response. How can you talk about some of the examples of ways that you're helping to translate those experiences that individuals have into a new role, and your work, and feel free to jump in, anyone.
Hey, Ted, I'm going to jump in just to say, this is something I find very interesting. There are a lot of tools out there these days to help with some of that. I know Google has a thing where you can just put in your MOS and it will give you, your military occupational specialty if you're a veteran, and it will give you a range of careers that align with the skills you learned. I tried to test that out, and it was a rather humbling experience because I found out that my MOS was retired as a Vietnam era MOS that's no longer in use. Talk about making you feel old. Anyway, but just to say that, there are some tools out there that help with that, but I'm interested to hear from JP Morgan Chase and others in Walmart on this call about how they're doing some of that.
I'll jump in and say this is a topic we're having quite extensively right now, where both Sarah and I and others are engaged in conversations around how you look at this from a supply side or a demand side problem is one way to frame it out. And when you look at it from a supply side problem, I'll tell you just a personal story. My daughter is what's known as a 12 Charlie, a military occupational specialty in the Army right now. She just got promoted to sergeant last Friday out at Fort Carson. So that was pretty cool for us. I was able to go out and be there for it. And she's going to get out of the Army in May. And she has a year and a half of college as a chemical engineering major at the Colorado School of Mines. She had too much fun, lost her scholarship, joined the Army, enlisted for a couple of years and now she's getting ready to get out. But she represents quite a bit of other people, 200,000 a year, that are going to get out over the course of the year from all the different services that have very similar stories. And she has this skill set. She's a bridging and rafting specialist as an engineer in the Army, but she wants to go back to school, get a sociology degree or a psychology degree, and go into market research at the corporate level. So I only say that because it's really hard to take and line up direct skills translations from occupational specialties and then somehow reconcile that with the fact that, having spent a lot of time in the Army, we don't have a sophisticated process for selecting people's jobs in the Army. It's like, what do you need? You could be a cook, you could be a bridging and rafting specialist, you could be an infantryman or whatever, but that's not what you are predisposed or want to do the rest of your life. And so the idea is how to distill those skills that you get. And I think ONET is a really good example that is much better than it used to be. If you type in ONET and you go in and you type in 12 Charlie as a career field, you'll see knowledge, skills, and so on. And it's when you start to get in those ones that are transferable that make sense to a marketing person, that makes sense to a someone who's a merchant or a frontline operations specialist or a warehouse manager in the civilian sector, then it starts to increase a little bit of savvy that where you can meet the individual where they are and what they want to do in the future. So I only bring all that up because there's no silver bullets to any of this. It's really hard. And the person that it has to come down to a conversation between the individual, a recruiter, and a hiring manager. And if those three people can be educated on how to communicate effectively with one another based off what's been done in the past and what the individual wants and should be able to do to help bring value to that company in the future, then I think that's the point of success, or that's the point of opportunity for success. Just to throw that out there.
Awesome. Yeah. I don't know, the JP Morgan folks want to speak to maybe, particularly around veterans and some of the work you're doing to help translate skills or past experience into skills?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I don't think any of us on here are in the, the right space to be discussing the veterans efforts that we have here at JP Morgan. There are several, and actually the program that I oversee, the STEMconnector program, which is for university graduates who don't have a computer science background or degree, that are moving into software engineer or want to start their careers as a software engineer. We are piloting next year, we're hoping. We run the program in the summer to bring in a couple of veterans into our summer cohort in the UK. So unfortunately, I don't have any lessons learned or anything quite yet, but
why don't you speak a little bit just to that work, because it's a good transition point. I did see, for example, on Ali Morano at JP Morgan's LinkedIn page, a testimonial that she sort of called out from a student who had been a server at a restaurant, was a college graduate, kind of not happy with his life or whatever, and I think it was in Seattle maybe, and had gotten a job as a developer at the bank, and I think that was through your program. Perhaps.
Yeah, Ali's team actually oversees kind of a variation on our program. Ali was heavily involved in starting the STEMconnector program at JP Morgan. I guess the main difference being with the STEMconnector program, we hire individuals, bring them in and train them, and then the team now that Ali oversees is hiring from third-party boot camps and things like that. So the stories probably that she's sharing on LinkedIn are probably from those individuals, but actually Kristen's one of our Americas program managers, so she's very close to all of the stories of the individuals kind of coming through our program. So I'll actually turn to her, Kristen, if you want to share a little bit more about kind of the transition for these individuals from college and non-computer science backgrounds into the software engineering roles.
Yeah, sure. We have this hashtag here that you'll see a lot in our recruiting, and it's hashtag all minds wanted. And in recent years, we've really been prioritizing, the idea of meeting people where they are and recognizing that there is such value in the diversity of their experiences and the ways that they are thinking, and creating pathways that allow them to come into the firm. So we're no longer looking for that person that has a typical, computer science background for our technology roles, but we have curated programming and experiences that anybody can come into. And so I think that's kind of like where, you know, how we're thinking about things is about meeting people where they are and creating the access for them. And so we have programs and opportunities in varying levels of maturity. Some are more established, like the STEMconnector program that Carolyn mentioned, but others are spinning up or in an incubation period. But our ultimate goal is to make sure that anyone who wants to work in tech can. So that's kind of like what we're doing right now. And veterans definitely is, you know, a population that we are looking to increase our engagement with. I know the firm, you know, we currently do have like a military pathways program. You know, we've committed to the 1,000 jobs missions and all the 100,000 jobs coalition. But it's when we think about tech reskilling, they will have those opportunities, that access for those to those resources as well as anyone else. So it's all about meeting folks where they are and creating the paths for them.
Hey, Kristen.
And to begin, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, just a quick follow-up for you, if you don't mind. You know, so Jen McDermott actually gave a really great interview for the—
I was on that call with you, yeah.
Oh my goodness, yes, okay, so yes, no, I remember her speaking about, you know, like you said, trying to meet people where they are and assessing for different things, right?
Yeah.
Then do they have these exact qualifications? Assessing for things like grit and interest.
Yes,
yes.
Yes.
You know, what are some of the, if you could just like kind of expand a little bit, since this session is so much about like translating these experiences into a language, into a skills-based language that, you know, is transferable essentially to new jobs. Can you speak a little bit more about kind of what are those things then when you're meeting people where they are? What are you looking for and how do you kind of measure that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a big part of it is, you know, we ideally, people know their why, their motivation for pursuing a certain thing. Like they've had some kind of exposure or some experience that has given them that aha moment. And so, you know, we've really, yeah, there's kind of two things. We want to provide avenues for people to kind of explore and figure out if this is a path for them, but some other opportunities are more so, you know, they're not meant to be testing grounds, and they're for, you know, individuals who have had, you know, an experience and they're now committed to making that change. And so it's about creating, you know, diversity in experiences that we offer so that we can appeal to broad population. But it's for those who, you know, are committed and understand their why and know this is something that they want to undertake. I think that's a huge part of it, because when we think about the effort that goes into reskilling, especially when there's a job waiting for you at the very end, it's not for the faint-hearted. It's not for someone who's like, okay, is this what I want? I don't really know. You know, it's for those who understand and are ready to make the investment that's required to reskill. So I think that's a big part of it. But like Jen mentioned, you know, the interest, the grit, the aptitude to learn how to code. Because I, you know, speaking for myself, I can't say that I'm one of those folks with the aptitude to code. It's not my gift, and I know that. But those who we welcome in and train definitely do have that technical aptitude. So I think those are the big things there.
Thank you so much. Sorry to jump in like that.
Abby, can I ask a question for the group? What do you all think about, one of the things Sarah and I have been looking at is, as we think about translating experience, is that gap in experience or re-entrant populations that have been out of the workforce because of caregiving or whatnot.
Was my next question.
Yeah.
Yes. Good. Well, because we just really are looking at what is the right way we should be thinking about that as a way to communicate to our internal talent consumers or the recruiters and then the hiring managers, and then how do we get them to take a look at people who aren't that fit that you talked about, Kristen, where how do you get it so that they're looking for this really deep vertical person, and we want them to look at the generalist who has solved a lot of problems while they were doing caregiving and all that really would translate if we could somehow figure out how to make that skill a quantifiable entry on a resume.
I think storytelling is a big part of that. Like, as you have people who have successfully re-entered the workforce or successfully reskilled, you have to be able to let your fellow employees, the hiring managers know. They have to see that it works in order to believe it. So I think, telling the story is going to be critical to that. So I see someone agrees or wants to add on to that a little bit, but I think storytelling is going to be critical.
Kristen, I think that's a great point. And going back to Brent's daughter, okay, she's getting ready to come out of the military. She's in an MOS. That's not what she wants to do now. She's done that. She's ready to do something different. So I think, that's part of it too, because sometimes people coming out of the military get pigeonholed. And I know there was a study done several years ago in the Seattle area of transitioning military members, and some, I don't remember the number, but some overwhelming majority of them did not want to go into a field directly related to their MOS. However, the interesting thing out of that study was 80% of the people who had an MOS in the STEM field, most of them wanted to do something different, but they wanted to stay within the STEM field. So I think that's an important thing to remember too. And if you can get at that, what got them interested in that in the first place and going into that, and getting that storytelling piece of finding out more about them, and they may not know what they want to do because they haven't been exposed to it yet. So that's the challenge, just to help them figure out what it is.
And I think what helps is, to define really your personas and your target population and understand those needs and address that while you are providing the training, right? So, to piggyback on what Kristen and Carolyn said and what Jen mentioned the other day, grit and determination are key to success. It's not only aptitude, right? I think, right now, because there are a lot of companies looking for reskillers or people that is able to go and write code, that is also provides an idea to the to the force, and they are thinking, oh, I can do that, right? So I think providing that ability for the persona to really taste what the life of a software engineer is, and make sure that it's not only because it's hot, because there are a lot of jobs, but because that is something that they are passionate about, that they can do, besides aptitude, grit, and determination. I think that is the key of success, for reskilling, because I have seen in the past, I am a coder myself, and now I am, helping with the reskilling programs. But I have seen in my career that a lot of my peers, they struggle a lot when they needed to code. And that is something that you really need to be passionate about. It is not all, something that you can do. You need to be, very passionate about. So that's why I think grit and determination for our reskilling, besides the aptitude, is the key combination for success.
I'm wondering, for Walmart folks, for Sarah and Brent, like in a big part of the LBU program, this is more on sort of the upskilling side, but it is a translation question, which is what we're focused on. You have so many employees, and a lot of them are, most of them, right, are associates in stores. How are you translating those skills? Like, how do you identify skills that are like, oh, this is something, and I would guess this is probably true for the JP Morgan folks, because you have these retail banking outlets. Just about how do you translate the skills that and assess and upskill your associates so that they can advance in their careers?
I think a lot of it does go back to what Kristen was saying in storytelling. What we've seen from some of our actual hiring managers is they take the risk to hire some of these associates, and they realize the value of our frontline associates, and that's not something that you can get from a class, and that's not something you can learn. And so traditionally, and so I think that they're gaining these type of valuable skills where they can do their job in a different way, and that plays into that diversity of thought. I think it plays into adoption from other hiring managers, but it is telling that story, because it takes that story from the top down to filter all through the levels and gain that adoption.
I'll add that Sarah and I did this kind of customer discovery sessions over about 2 months this summer with about 50 or 60 different stakeholders in the business. And many of them were in the T in STEM, that pure technologist side. And what we found from nearly all of them, to elaborate on what she said, was you have people who are UX designers, you have people that are software engineers, product developers, and managers, data and analytics folks. And they all said that the holy, or the unicorn that they were looking for was somebody who had these technical skills, but also had been at the front line of Walmart and understood the context for why they were employing those skills as a STEM practitioner, as opposed to a STEM related or a STEM enabled job. And so that's been a big part about what Sarah and I have been trying to figure out with our team, is how do we take the frontline associate who has that which everyone says they need over here, and then equip them with that STEM skill so that they can be the competitive hire on the back end that has the broader concentric circles of aptitude, skills, and wherewithal to help our business. And that's been it's a mindset change than hiring the data and analytics person and then teaching them the frontline skills, which you just can't do very well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a journey a lot of companies are on, like wanting to capitalize on that human capital that, you know, our frontline workers, our call center, retail branch employees, like those folks who are interacting with our customers day to day, that they bring, that they can offer. So yeah.
I mean, the people that
they have amazing credibility too. I mean, it's like they sit in a room and it's like, oh, I was at assistant store manager one day. Everyone's like, okay, be quiet, listen to them. They know what they're talking about.
Who was the guy that he's like the head of Sam's Club, that Sarah, who's sort of the boss of the Walmart, the tech division that we had the event at in Dallas?
Oh, John Furner. He's now over US, but I bet you're talking about John Furner.
Yeah, and he started out as like a store manager, right? I mean,
I think so.
Even associate, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, even lower. And then Doug McMillan, our CEO, actually started out as a stalker, not a stalker, a stock room person. Actually, on his very first day, he tells this really funny story. His first day as a young, 19-year-old in Bentonville at a warehouse putting things on shelves, he ran into his then supervisor's car. And so he thought it was going to be his last day on the job, was his first day. Turns out here he is, the CEO of, Fortune 1 company. So it all works out. But that credibility is huge.
It sounds like the aligned translation works pretty well, that it translates well when you have underwritten loans at a smaller bank, or even in a small, at a lower level in a company. Moving up makes sense, but it's that, I guess, the challenges, we kind of are relying on stories, it sounds like, when we look at even the associates at Walmart who move up, that there's a pathway. And it sounds like this all kind of tracks with what Christian was saying, that you need to have that pathway illuminated a bit by people who have gone there and done that in the past.
We're working heavily on career pathing now. Believe it or not, we have 1.5 million associates in the US, and we can't tell them, if you do this set of skills and this pathway in Walmart at the operation side, that person right now doesn't have a clean transition over to do the same thing in Sam's Club, even though we're in the same enterprise, or in the supply chain field, or from either any of those to the corporate level. And so we're really working hard at that, because I think once you define the pathways, you then can identify the skills that are requisite at each pathway level, and then you find the commonalities and connect the dots laterally. We're going through that big time.
I'll add one quick thing. When we think about I'll just umbrella term, the frontline populations, they're some of the most diverse, like traditionally diverse employees that we have, and to be, we don't want to lose them if their jobs become obsolete, or if they need, the job is eliminated or something like that. And so defining the pipeline, the pathway into another job, through reskilling is essential, because it's I think it's fair to say it's an incredibly diverse population that we want to hold on to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's also the reason, at least on the Walmart side, the LBU program is so important too. It's really messaged to all of our associates, particularly our frontline associates. And so we know those diversity numbers diversity and ethnic and economic diversity, I think we see, right? And so both, and you know, why not tap into that talent who have those frontline skills, and, you know, and upskill them through our program like LBU to move them into that career pathing.
Yeah, and I would say that goes back to a point we were talking about earlier in the panel discussion about you know, if you wait for someone to go through college or whatever and get all the credentials and everything that you think you need in your management roles and in your higher level, you know, of your organization, then you're probably not going to get that diverse talent because they will have not had the resources or the time to invest in that education on their own to get to that point at the same percentages that a traditional population is going to have. So you know, that's sort of the problem we see today is the management roles, you know, have not been diversified, and that's one key reason why. So I think having programs to get them in an entry level job that pays a living wage and build from there is the key.
I'm wondering for both employers and Abby, feel free, and as well as Roy to jump in. With the pandemic, obviously this is changing the landscape of a lot of jobs. It's accelerating the disappearance of jobs that were maybe already going to go away, that we didn't even think were going to go away. Like I think restaurants and things like that are changing quite a bit. How are you guys? Have you changed your approach? And can you talk about that if you have, based on the response to the pandemic?
So I think for, at least for our Tech Connect program, and again, Kristen oversees this more in detail, but we did have to pivot because we're aligned to a campus hiring schedule. You know, we'd already hired our class for the 2020 program, and they were scheduled to start in June, and the pandemic hit in March. So we quickly pivoted all of our, original plans, which this is the 6th year that we've been running the program. So it was kind of a well-oiled machine, and we had all the logistics and everything kind of planned and worked out and whatnot. So switching to a virtual model was certainly not something we had tried before. And then I think with that, we also kind of paused some of the other programs and plans that we had in place, just so we could kind of work through the Tech Connect program at a minimum and see how that worked and identify best practices or challenge areas or whatnot, to figure out how we could pivot and, adjust that and redo that for other programs as well. So definitely put some things on pause, but I think it also forced us to try something that we were probably, I don't know if Kristen, you would agree, a little hesitant about at the start, the cohort and the community feel of our program and bringing everyone together in person for the 9-week duration or whatever it is such a crucial component of building, their experience and their network when they first start here at the firm, and something that I think is really like cherished and valued. Now, this group didn't know what they were missing, if you will. And I think Kristen and our other program manager, Jody, did a really nice job of making sure that they replicated as much as they could in a virtual environment, but it was certainly something we were not prepared to be doing when we started the year. So Ruth, Kristen, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, but I think it just kind of forced us to pause some things and try out some other models that we weren't originally planning for.
Yeah. How about you, Brent?
So for Sarah and I, we were able to witness firsthand the business in March. We had just a vignette to highlight the answer to your question about how we pivoted and what we think technology or what COVID is going to impact us. We had to convert 1,500 brick and mortar stores across the country to become e-commerce fulfillment centers in 2 weeks. And what that entailed was a blend of these human-enabled machine tasks and these machine-enabled human tasks, and this analysis to be able to turn the back end of a store of all the infrastructure, the digital tie-in to the ability of people to order mobile. And what most people were doing was getting at-risk parents and other people set up for grocery delivery and pickup, and the ability to have the store associates be able to become essentially fulfillment center individuals and rotate through that process, have our entire supply chain respond to that and the delivery mechanisms. And that just caused us to do about 5 years worth of change in 2 weeks. And it was huge. And what we learned, the only way to get through that was because of the people, and going back to having a blend of those generalists, being able to work with individuals who were STEM practitioners or STEM enabled individuals. Every job we realize is STEM enabled, where you're either a human that's enabled by machines or you're enabling a machine task. The last thing I'll say is, just about a month ago, Walmart ended up removing a robotic capability from our operations in the stores that was doing a function related to product scanning in the evenings and replenishment. And we did that primarily because we just realized that people are the centerpiece of this. It doesn't matter how far the technology can take you, it's what should you do, not what you can do. And we realized that for a whole lot of social responsibility reasons and others, it was just better to keep people in those jobs. And I think you're going to see a lot of that. COVID is just highlighting that analysis that companies are having to do over time.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate everybody's contributions. I think we're going to get sent back into the main room. And Abby, you can help me report out on this. But this is great. Having such a great group of folks with two anchor employers, and Roy, your experience is just great. So I really appreciate you guys supporting this effort today. We are going to go back into the room. I have a feeling our report out will be like 5 or 6 minutes, if that, and the others maybe. I know that some of the other groups were a little bit less focused topics, so they might have more to share. But I hope this has been a good experience for you guys, and we're going to keep working on this.
It's great. I love these sessions that are smaller. You get to chat with people.
I know. I almost was like, maybe we should have, some of the speakers do their like a small level, like Ed's presentation maybe could have been just a smaller breakout group, and he could have had more interaction. So, well, live and learn. And this is the best platform. So I think, but we'll see. I know all the slides will be available, and Sarah and Brent, if you guys, and Roy, if you have materials that you'd like us, what we'll do is we'll just send out a folder with everybody's, like Abby's presentation will be in there, plus the paper. And I think this is an important topic. And please give my best to Jen McDermott. And if you see Ali Morano, say hi to them. I haven't, I've seen Jen more recently, but yeah.
Hey, Carolyn, Kristen, and Ruth, if you all have any groups that you work with to get mothers that have left the workforce or others that are ready to come back that you would recommend to Sarah and I, we'd love to hear your recommendations and thoughts. It'd be great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brent, I'm happy to connect you to Tracy as well.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back. All right. Amy, do you want to lead this part? You're muted still.
Like, how many months will it take? Well, I could tell you that it took a little while to get us going, but we had some really strong ideas across the group about, what are some components of a meaningful partnership. So I'm just going to start with our group, if that's okay with everyone, even though we were group number 2. But Beth, would you like to share out sort of what we talked about, highlights in our partnership session?
Sure. So I think one key takeaway is the value of the paid internship, which solidifies the partnership between higher ed and industry. That stake in the ground is so important as we look at moving students of color, first-gen students, women, those that are LGBTQIA, any of the underrepresented groups in STEM into industry. That internship allows them to build a network, to have a mentor, to have a role model, and to really expand their view of what career opportunities are available within the context of STEM. I think the other thing that we talked about is for those resources that are asynchronous and openly available to those who may not be in a post-secondary institution, but looking to upskill and get into career, really that hybrid model of coach or TA or facilitator leans more towards success for that individual. So those were a couple of the key points.
Thank you, Beth. Would love to hear now from the group that focused on skill building through project-based learning. Did anyone volunteer to be the report out expert?
I volunteered, Amy.
Thank you, Dr. Gravine.
You're very welcome. So there were some really interesting things that came out of the group. There was a lot of discussion about design thinking and the importance of design thinking and not needing to be perfect. People understanding that it was creating the mindset around try, test, fail, reiterate instead of this need for perfection. Also talked about bringing the design thinking and opportunities to the community, having the opportunity to just explore things without having a grade attached to it or without having, you know, that high stakes thing going on. You just got to play with things and sort of learn some of those skill sets. We talked some about Zoom communication and having the need for an entirely different skill set when you're going into the workplace now, when you're having to communicate with these little boxes on the screen as opposed to talking to people and having to adjust how we communicate with people. And we had a great discussion about the Tallo platform and some of the things that they're able to do for students with, and I like the part about talking about social projects. They could include things about their social projects, and in this day and age, we really need to be having that conversation. We talked about pathways and about people maybe being worried when they hear the word STEM that that's not for them, and how project-based could help to make them feel like maybe they could do STEM kinds of things without having that STEM word associated with it. We talked about being able to bring in your personal experiences and the importance of diversity in leadership. And it was really interesting, the conversation that we had that talked about a lot of people getting jobs through networking. And if you're using networking and you're a first generation student, you don't have the same network as other people do, and how we broaden those kinds of horizons. And that project-based learning is almost sort of a leveler with bringing people in and providing some equitable opportunity to work together and get some of those experiences. Shailene brought up a book called Freedom as Development. I think, I didn't have my screen up. I think that's who was
Development talking. As Freedom.
oh, my bad. Development as Freedom. See, my dyslexia going there for a minute. So everybody was super excited about the book. We're all going to go out and get it because it was really interesting about building capacity to solve our own problems. And then we talked about the need for awareness about mentorship programs. Issue of paid versus paid internships also came up in our area, and how important it was to have that for first gen students and people of color who need to work and can't do an unpaid internship. Talked about a little bit about financial burdens, and we talked about the opportunity to work with businesses to create credentials through programs, so students would have the credentials that the businesses needed when they came out of programs.
Thank you so much. Lots of overlap and yet a lot of really new, interesting ideas. I appreciate that. And then finally, our third group, led by Ted, was translating experience into cross-sector skills. So who is the lucky winner from group number 3?
I think I'm gonna lead it, and then Abby, feel free to jump in. We had it was Abby, Oya, and myself from the STEMconnector team, and Roy from Dallas, and then it was JP Morgan folks and Walmart folks. So definitely was informed, and we had sort of different approaches to translating, which is, you know, is mostly a reskilling type of endeavor, but also, as we talked about, can be an upskilling endeavor. We started the conversation off sort of talking about veterans and reskilling, and Brent made the point that that he and Sarah at Walmart are talking a lot about, is this a supply side problem or more of a demand side problem? How can employers be more strategic about interpreting experiences and especially from a veteran's background into what will be useful in the workforce, and talked about ONET as a great resource for that. I think, and also, Brent shared, his experiences, his daughter's experience, and how she's trying to move back into the workforce from a military experience, which was really interesting. The JP Morgan folks, so Carolyn, Kristen, and Ruth, helped us understand sort of this all minds wanted approach that JP Morgan Chase is taking to the tech development work that they're doing around reskilling, and that's taking folks, from a non-tech background and helping them get the skills necessary to be in a technical role at the bank or the firm. And one of the things that Kristen brought up quite a bit was really important was the need for having sharing stories about the journeys that individuals have had, particularly folks from diverse backgrounds who may not see themselves as well represented in the workforce. Meeting people where they are was brought up quite a bit, and storytelling of was really critical. Just see here. We also talked about sort of the idea of sort of an upskilling piece of translating experiences. So whether you're a frontline associate at Walmart, and how do you move into different roles, particularly even technical roles? What does that look like? And what kind of, and I think the folks at JP Morgan found the same thing, was when the experience is somewhat aligned with the core business, that things translate better. If the more different your last experience is than the role that you're trying to aim for, that's where, which makes sense. I think that's logical. Things are more difficult. With COVID, just in terms of response to COVID and translation, there's some discussion just around, taking stock, I think, of workforce that, is that both companies had, and sort of realizing how these individuals can really help them adapt and pivot. And Brent made the point that, man, there's not very many roles at Walmart these days that are not STEM related at some level. And so having STEM competencies is really important. And Carolyn spoke about like the STEMconnector program, which is this reskilling program, and how the pandemic really forced them into different ways of doing business, and that has been probably something that might stick with them for a while. I think Brent said they did 5 years worth of change in 2 weeks, which was at Walmart, which was pretty crazy. So, but it was a really good discussion. I think this is one, we didn't really spend as much time on women returning. I know that's of interest, so Tracy, I know, had to jump off, but I think that's something maybe we should look at next year, is returnship programs, particularly in light of what's happened. And, I know I talked to the chief data officer at VMware a couple of weeks ago, who said that their numbers in tech are declining. I don't know what it's like at JP Morgan Chase, but I know this is an issue that is going to probably be something a lot of employers are looking at as well. 800,000 women left the workforce in September, 4 times the rate of men leaving. So this is an issue that I think we're going to have to figure out some on-ramps back on for women who have made the choice that they had to make to focus on being at home.
Thank you, Ted. I know that this was just a short piece of a much larger conversation, but I want to encourage any of you, if you have additional ideas, if you want to be connected to folks in your group, if you don't have their contact information, or if you want to explore some of the conversations from the other groups, please do reach out to us, and we would be happy, to connect you where it makes sense to do so. We now have about 15 minutes left. So unless anyone has any sort of final thoughts from the breakouts that they would like to share, even if it's just an idea that you want to throw out there and let sit in everyone's brain, I'm welcome you to do that. But otherwise, I'll turn it over to Ted.
I'm happy to turn. Is there anybody? I know we're all running from Zoom. Roy Bond said he had been going since 8 a.m. this morning, and he has 4 interviews, so he had to drop off so he could walk around for 30 minutes. So I know a lot of folks are going from one thing to another. Really appreciate everybody joining us today. And I know this is not as we'd like it to be in person, but you know, it was good that we could get everybody involved. And I want to give a big shout out to the STEMconnector team who, especially Kylie, Shalini, Abby, who did a lot of the work to make this possible. Abby's paper, we wouldn't be here without it. So thanks everybody, and we'll see you in 2021. If I'll be reaching out to some of you for end of the year conversations or just to chat. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.